Thank you to you guys to join us today, and we're really excited about talking about a remote events. And right now, I'm just gonna be, introducing myself and then introducing others participants of this group. My name is Daniel Alcanja. I'm a CEO and co-founder of a company called Trio. We help companies scale their business by providing them experienced software engineers. So today I'm here with Corbin Pong, co-founder of Thesis. And I would like to have him to kind of give you a little intro about himself, and then we will introduce other panels of this event.
Thanks, Daniel. Hi, my name's Corbin. I'm co-founder of Thesis. We are a venture blockchain studio. We are building the next decentralized Bitcoin on Ethereum, and we just launched that today called TBTC. So really excited about that. Really exciting announcement. I'm from the Boston area originally, computer science background, and have been in the crypto startup space for 7 years now. Way too long.
Cool, awesome. Our next speaker is Wafa. Wafa is a co-founder and CEO of Workaround. Excited to have you here. Can you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me then here. So my name is Wafa Arbash, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Workaround. And what we do at Workaround, we provide data labeling for machine learnings by hiring refugees and displaced people overseas to provide this service for companies.
Cool, awesome. That's great. Yeah, our next participant of this group is Stacey. She's a software engineer. I would like it to have her and kind of speak a little bit about herself.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Stacey Wileyko, and I'm a developer at a company called Casa, where we're focused on making Bitcoin safer and easier to use. I started working remotely in 2014, and I've been doing it for the better part of my career now. And I've worked for 3 companies as a remote engineer, but Casa is the first one that's 100% remote. So I'm really excited to share some of the lessons and the processes I've learned, and I really appreciate you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, excited. Let's just jump into some of the questions that we have. We're going to be talking about, remote, how working remotely, how has, working remotely has been changes for all of us. So the first question that I'm going to ask you, Corbin Pong, is, how has working remotely changed the way, your team communicates on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or if you, always work remotely, like what did you see difference between right now as that we are on a pandemic? So just give us a little hint, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been working remotely as a company for several years now, and personally I've been doing it for probably even longer than that. I guess the biggest challenge I've found is that everything needs to be a lot more sort of intentional. Everything needs to be a lot more planned and designed, whether it's like having touch points, having communication, having calls, or having like issue trackers, or you have to be a lot more, we ended up having to be a lot more sort of intentional about how we like broadcast information, how we categorize information, who we involve in different conversations, and just being much more cognizant about that. That's always been sort of the hardest thing for us to scale and grow with as our team has gotten bigger. It's a lot more difficult to just kind of get everyone on a call or just shoot someone a text message or a chat. So that's always been the thing that I think we take really seriously and see as like a difference. You can't just kind of rely on spontaneous water cooler conversations or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it leaves a little bit on the table or on the ground in terms of like creativity at times, but that at the same time, it makes you more responsible for sort of making sure communication and information flows cleanly.
Mm-hmm. And is that, did you see that like after, we got into the pandemic situation, did you see that changing anything related to communications with your team, even though before you guys already been working remotely and, distribute team?
Yeah, so we had a couple offices, but for the most part, everyone worked remotely. I think the biggest change for us is we like to do on-sites. We like to have team on-sites or company on-sites. That really helps everyone sort of break down their kind of social barriers, try to get to be more friendly and understanding each other and just to be more sociable. And we can't do any of those right now, not safely at least. And that has made dealing with the stress of work, has made dealing with sort of crises that have popped up a lot more difficult. We like to say, it's better to sort of plan synchronously and then work asynchronously, but planning synchronously and just sort of even just socializing synchronously has kind of been thrown out the window the last 6 months. So for us as a team, trying to figure out ways to kind of keep that energy going and that social energy going, even though we're not able to do on-sites or do in-person things anymore.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's totally makes sense. And Stacey, so with we working remotely, it's always hard to see progress when there's no flow of communications there and stuff like that, or even to kind of checking on other members of the team and kind of see progress and see how they're doing and stuff like that. Sometimes that's kind of some of micromanaging, like you always ask, members of your team, hey, how you doing? How things are going? So what do you see the best approach to the best approach for, kind of get stuff out of your team members, of your, colleagues and stuff like that? How do you see that?
Yeah, definitely. So I know when we were kind of riffing on this a little bit earlier, one of the points was that, maybe you don't hear from someone for 1 or 2 days. And I have to say that I don't think that's normal or acceptable. And this is coming from somebody who tries to avoid as many meetings as possible. I don't want to go to any of them in my perfect world. And if you're experiencing something like that or something similar, it's probably a symptom of a larger problem. And my best advice is to prevent it from being an issue in the first place. And one way you can do that is with daily stand-ups. So at CASA, everyone is invited to listen in on our engineering stand-up. It's a completely open invitation. Every now and then, we'll have product drop in if they want a hyper granular update on a feature that someone's working on. But I can't recommend stand-ups for startups without the caveat that you need to do them correctly, because if you don't, they become a way to just micromanage people. And so you really got to time box them to 15 minutes. People should only be talking about what they did yesterday, what they're doing today, and do you have any blockers? That's it. And take all the other conversations offline. And a good way to remember that is it's called a stand-up because you're all standing. And if you go for too long and someone needs to take a seat, then you're doing it wrong. But that's a good practice that I think works well.
Yeah, definitely. It is a challenge, because you actually not seeing the person on your offices, usually when you're at the office, you can kind of clearly see that the person is working on something and stuff, or even you can just go to the coffee and, they usually come up some question related, the project and the task that they're working on. It's definitely remote. I definitely, it's a challenge that it seems that you guys, have a pretty well solution for that. Which is great. So then come up with the next question for me. Since we don't have that coffee, we don't have that kitchen that we go to talk to our, our colleagues, how can we make it that engagement, that engagement that most of the time the office can bring it to us? How can we make it all this distributed team engaging and talk to each other, and still have that, really great environment of engagement? Wafa, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think one way to get this engagement, because it's really hard, when you go, as you said, to go to the office and see people face to face, it's much easier to check in on them. It's how was your weekend? What you're having for lunch? How did you make this recipe? But when you're having remote team, so we have our team. So we're a very small team. So we're 2 in Boston and 2 overseas. So we're from the beginning we have really much semi-distributed. Some people are working remotely. So when the pandemic started, we start scheduling more intentionally coffee chats for like just 30 minutes to check on people, and just so the way we start them is by like having red, green, or red, yellow, green. So red, so we do like a small check-ins, like, so each person has to answer the question like, what's your color today? So people can say, if it's red, that means like things are not going well. If yellow, things are okay. And if things are green, they share that. So it's just a way to get to know what people's color today and how they are feeling. So that's like a one way. Scheduling those coffee chats, it really helps to share some pictures of the food you're having on the cooler Slack channels. It's also another way to get people like talking to each other.
That's a very very good position. It's definitely a challenge to keep the all teams remote engaging together. But yeah, there is creative ways that you can do that. Like Wafa mentioned some of the ideas. Literally just hang out with people, like talking to them. Have coffee or have lunch virtually with them. And I always mention to the team, like they do have a Zoom parties. Why don't we have ours? Like let's just do it and try to get use most of those stuff. So after this pandemic, definitely there's that you guys change a little bit processing and stuff. Is there any type of process for you guys that you guys have done that you guys had to change it right now in the pandemic? Like for example, you guys had to use a new tool, or you guys have to intentionally use more Slack. Is that any tool, or is that anything, or is that any process that you guys had to change in order to make this process go as smooth as possible during the pandemic? Is that any? Feel free to. Anybody can just.
I think we've had to have more video call meetings than we normally do. So usually the engineering team has like a weekly all hands, and then they also do individual peer, programming sessions or whatever they want to do individually or in small teams. But I think during the pandemic, because we haven't had certain groups of people doing on-sites or just working in the same office and they happen to be in the same project, I think the amount of video calls we've had has gone up a bunch. It's not something we really want to do, but I think just making sure those kind of communication flows, being sure everyone's on the same page has become really important, more important than it was previously. So that was definitely a change in our sort of process. It's not really one that we like though. It's one we're trying to figure out how to reduce the face-to-face conversations if possible, because they do suck up a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, Corbin, and I think we're in a very similar boat here. We used to do a lot of offsites. We would do a team retreat twice a year, and that's kind of when we hash out a lot of bigger design discussions. And we're kind of I'm in the middle of one right now, and it's just like every week we kind of like get together and we talk, and then like we walk away like not having really made a decision because we kind of need that in-person face-to-face time. So it's definitely been difficult. I think the engineering culture at CASA has always been to kind of be available during normal work hours. So that hasn't been too much of an issue, but I feel like that's really important, because if you're not available during normal work hours for an impromptu, like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to get on a call? Because talking something out on a call is always going to be better than sending vague messages on your chat. Like, it's so easy to sound like a jerk that way. And it's so easy to like dig yourself into a hole, and then like, it's just a waste of everyone else's time. But I just think it's super important to be available when your team needs you for like a 5-minute discussion, more so now that we've had this pandemic.
Cool. Awesome.
I just want to add one thing, since like it seems like you have like most of your team in the US, but for us, since we have a global team, so what we make sure that we have like 4 hours overlap between the US work hours versus overseas. So we make sure that we have this 4 hours overlap. So if we need to do any meetings, we make sure that we do those meetings during those hours. And then we have, so if I face any challenge or I have any questions, I just record my screen with my face using Loom. It's a very easy tool to use, and it's been really awesome instead of like typing messages. And sometimes people might read your tone in a very different way from what you mean. So recording your screen with your face and saying what's happening, so it comes through your words, and the delivery will be much better than like just typing things down. So that's been something also super helpful to us. And another tip is Slack has a functionality to add, or like if I'm talking to Dan, like I can see what time is in his time hours. So that's something also very super helpful, and making sure people are sharing with each other calendars, so we know from which hour to which hour we're expecting you to be online versus not.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's all great, guys. And like, and as Wafa mentioned, so there's this Loom platform that, you know, it's very helpful. We actually use that here. It's kind of, we are giving a feedback, we're sharing our screen, but also be able to share our face, you know, and literally create a link out of that video and send it over to someone who's gonna actually watch me, my reaction on my face, like reaction about like giving them a feedback and stuff. So guys, Loom is one, and probably Zoom is another tools that you guys kind of get more intense and well knowing right now. But did you guys found out any other tools that was really helpful that you guys had to find during this this working remotely area? Did you guys ever find any other tools that was, you know, great and find for you guys and was really helpful on your teams?
Nothing new, but I like to say just like I think our engineering communication stack is pretty good, because we have team chat, which integrates really tightly into GitHub. Engineering team uses GitHub issues for most of their kind of you know, decision making and progress updates, issue tracking, and that works pretty well. And then the weekly stand-ups and whatnot. So that's a pretty solid stack that we felt has been pretty resilient.
Cool, awesome. So we're talking a lot about like the team's member kind of just communicating, and a lot of the other colleagues kind of give you guys updates. But you guys, most of you guys are like on, you know, confront the team and stuff. How did you guys communicate with your team? Like, what is the way that you guys see that's easily, you know, for you guys to spread the message, to spread the culture, to spread, like, you know, the ideas that you guys have in mind, and how you guys gonna proceed with the ideas? Wafa, do you wanna take that one?
Yeah, sure. Can you repeat that question again, please?
So my question is, how can you spread the vision, like the you know, what the ideas that you guys have to the other members of the team? Since you guys all work in distributed, it's kind of sometimes hard to send, you know, like what is your vision and idea to the team? Like, how is the best way for you guys making sure that they understand, you know, the idea and the scope of the project?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So basically what we do, we have our weekly meeting. So we have a meeting for our growth, and we have meeting for our engineering team, where we meet and see what the engineers are working on. So we make sure that we have those two are aligned. So then we don't have a lot of like dysfunctionality, or like we're all moving in the same directions. So each like 3 months we decide like, okay, like our goal for the next 3 months is maybe to increase our growth by like 50%. So we break that down into pieces, and each week when we have our KPI meetings, we see how we're doing on track. And with that also, we divide all these like goals into KPIs, and each team will be responsible, or like 1 or 2% are responsible for some of the activities on the KPIs to achieve our goals. And that's basically, and that's also like goes directly when we have our like advisor meeting, where we chat about what's the challenge that we're facing and how we're going to solve them. And based on that meeting, we have a plan to move forward for the next few months. And that's how we keep, for a startup, it's much easier to communicate, especially because we have a small team.
Cool. Awesome. Great, guys. And so another question that's coming up here is about the hiring process during the, when you work remote and you hire someone overseas and and how can you hire someone effectively and you see that the person is going to fit your culture if you are not like in the same city or you're not going to see them in personally? Do you guys have any hint around that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this because hiring remote engineers is just really tough. It's getting easier because more people are spending time on side projects, and you can take a look at their GitHub. What you're really looking for is, are they like an independent learner? Can they solve their own problems? Because like we said earlier, you can't just like go walk down the hall to someone's desk and get help. Now, having said that, I totally understand if you're a developer and you don't want to code in your spare time or you don't want to code for free. I know I like to get away from the computer when I'm not working. But when it comes to hiring, you want to look for two things. And one is very obvious. It's the skill. Can this person find their own answers? Do they know how to Google? And, because some people don't. But the other thing that's really hard is you need to be able to work with this person. And it kind of, at the end of the day, the other half of that equation is like, you got to ask the team members who sat in on the interview, would you be able to work with this person? And we've had times where we've had like one, but not the other. So we could have somebody who's like really, really talented, but if they're just not, if you can't work with them, it's not worth it, because they're going to be working for you like 9 to 5. You can't build good products that way. And unfortunately, the opposite is also kind of true. Like if somebody's like really great, but their skill set's not the right fit, you can bring them on board, but you're going to be spending a lot more time ramping them up to where they need to be. I don't think that's an issue, like if you have the resources, but many startups don't. So that's where it becomes tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that we lean towards hiring people who already have remote experience, mostly because as a startup, we don't have a lot of resources to train people, get them used to what is it like to be a remote worker. So we kind of cautiously will hire those people without experience, but we much prefer people with it. Just because there are things that don't come up in the interview, maybe that should. Things like, how good are your written communication skills? Because you're gonna be writing a lot. Do you get lonely? Do you need to be working in an office? Have you never worked from home before, ever, or in a co-working space? Are you going to get kind of weirded out by everything or feel unsupported? Will you advocate for yourself? Because it's very easy to kind of get lost in the shuffle as things kind of progress really, really quickly. And you need to always be sort of raising your hand, being like, I don't understand what's happening, or I don't get this, or how about this thing, or my opinion on this thing. So it's hard to kind of suss those out in the interview process, but we try.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that after this pandemic, everyone will have had a taste of remote work, and they'll know if they want to keep doing it or not.
Right. Did you guys find that it's like kind of, so since you are working remotely, there is more ways and the pool of people that you can reach and the numbers of candidates that you can get, it's really broad and it's bigger than just okay, I'm gonna hire in Boston or Massachusetts. How you guys dealing with this process of kind of vetting or kind of just sourcing this candidate, because it must be overwhelming. What is like, is there any tips or technique that you guys have in mind just to help our audience to understand that?
I unfortunately don't think I can provide very good advice here. I work in a very small industry, so a lot of it is word of mouth. We definitely try to look at open source projects and see who's contributing. I would say if you want to get into remote work and you're an engineer, just volunteering some of your time for open source can make you very visible and very attractive. But yeah, I don't have any better tips than that.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So then there is one question that we have is after we hiring that person, we still need to introduce that person to onboarding that to the team. So do you guys have any experience? So what is the best way that you guys can introduce that person remotely to the team and to the environment that the person is going to be working on?
Well, we used to use on-sites, but we don't do those anymore. I don't know if we've hired anyone in an engineering role since the pandemic, but I think what we would probably do is, we'd have the normal sort of like join the all hands and maybe have a specific session just for this person to get to know the rest of the team they're working with, if not the whole company. And then kind of have them pair off or have them work with small groups or small individuals within the team, the small project team they're working in, to kind of get them into the culture and the way of doing things.
Yeah, if I could chime in here. So onboarding is tough, even like not during a pandemic. And assuming you hire the right person, it's not going to be as painful as it may seem. But I have a coworker who created this brilliant program that he calls developer development. And I was the guinea pig for it when I first started a year and a half ago. But basically, you get assigned either a mentor or a mentee. Like, this isn't just for junior developers. It's for mid-career, it's for senior. And it's all about having somebody to go bounce ideas off of, get help, and kind of work through problems. And I think if you even just view it as a buddy system, I kind of think it's still important, because even like a senior engineer who joins the team, they're still going to have questions about process, about responsibility. And it's just nice to have like a point of contact that they can go to. And just kind of along those lines, at other companies, I've noticed it's really nice when new employees start in pairs, because you always have someone you can is going through the same thing as you, and you don't feel afraid asking, because it's not a stupid question, because they're experiencing it too. So I really like the idea of pairing people up.
No, okay. So for us, actually, we have like my CTO, kudos to him. He has like all these documentations about onboarding someone. So when we're onboarding someone, we make them join like our coffee chat, and we just getting to know them. Plus, like, we make sure that they have all the resources that they needed to know how to find stuff in our system. And then one another things, we make sure to have this 101 with anybody. Like I always have 101 on monthly basis with my team or as an individuals, and just chat with them about what they are facing and like what's top mind for them, and just answer any question they might have.
And I just want to chime in there on the one-on-one. We do those as well. And one of the things that we discuss is progression on professional development goals. And as an employee, like, I think it's such a nice way to show that like a boss cares about their employees by taking the time to do that one-on-one. So I agree. Those are really nice.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, definitely. This onboard process, I think the most important thing is that, because someone who is new, they kind of sometimes they have questions that they don't, like they don't know where things are. They don't know who should they ask. And most of the time they, if there is anything that they don't know, they just cannot just walking into someone's tables and ask stuff, and I think it's a pretty, it's a situation where things that needs to be clear as much as possible, and make sure that the people has all the information they need. At our company, so we kind of created like this welcome kit, like, which is basically is a Google Doc where we name it like, okay, so, if you are looking for our policy on vocations, here's the place where you can find it. If you have, any questions related, what is the company GitHub, open source projects. So here's the link and stuff like that. I think it just by the fact that we have this kind of welcome kit and allow them go through each link and, have like recording video that say, or this is what is, the company it's about, and stuff like that. Sometimes that has been help us a lot. And again, after that first week, I think that first week we will tell a lot for that person, what is the company it's about, you know, how they gonna communicate and stuff. But keeping that person on the loop at the first week and make sure that they have everything that they need to perform, you know, the work and do the best. It's a really good thing. And after this onboard process, what did you guys have done anything related to kind of, okay, let's to make that person grow, you know, anything related to, you know, kind of planning, you know, career planning for that software engineers, as I think Stacey mentioned a little bit about that. But what did you guys have done in relate to the career path for the, you know, that new hire and, you know, as working remote with them?
So we end up not having to necessarily do career development for software engineering, but we do sort of industry, I guess, learning for the crypto and blockchain world. Because a lot of people we hire come in without a deep crypto or blockchain experience. So I think a lot of the materials that we try to provide, we also try to do things like sponsor you to go to a conference, little things like that. I think we try to, you know, encourage people to attend and take advantage of, to kind of learn their industry a lot better. Granted, now that's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, just sort of like educational materials, getting them involved. We've even had, though we haven't executed on this yet, we have that idea of like giving everyone like 100 Bitcoin and trying to learn how to, or $100 in Bitcoin, I mean, and having them like buy things or use it and kind of understand how the idiosyncratic nature of this new industry works.
Cool, awesome. And Wafa, another question is, so you work with you know, oversee engineers and stuff. So relate to benefits, like what make those you know, members of your team that are oversee, what makes them excited about working and join, you know, your company and your project? What did you find that's most excited for them?
I think for the team, like, again, like, since we have like people working overseas with us, I think what's very maybe driving them is just like joining international team. They want to work remotely, so they just want to work from their home. They don't want to go to any office. So like the fact that it's like, oh, remote and you can work in flexible hours, that's maybe one component to it. Another component, because the people where we're working with, the majority of them are based in Middle East. So the salary difference, since they are getting paid in the US dollar, so that makes it more compelling to them versus getting paid in the currency where they are based. Something also we work with our team, and also people are like, they value the mission for us to provide work for refugees and displaced people. So many of the workers that we have, they know what does that mean. So that's something driven for them, not just only driven for them just to do their work, and they care about the mission, and that's where they are here in the first place.
Cool, that's awesome. Anything to add to this? So Stacey or Corbin, did you guys have any to add on this?
We currently don't have any international employees, but I'll just echo what Wafa said about being aligned on company mission and also company culture. If you're building something that the entire team believes in, which if you're a startup, that is probably the case, there's definitely a very strong reason to keep building. It's like a magnet, and like you want to come to work every day and you want to work on it. So cool.
Awesome, thank you. So one other question, I think we're getting short here from Zaido. So did you guys see any changes in relate to you and the relationship with the clients, with the partners that you guys have? Did you see any changes, you know, beside of not have to meet with them in person? How did you guys address those? You know, dealing with clients and support then and stuff like on that, you know, remote momentum right now. So do you guys find any issues or challenges doing that? So anyone can answer their questions.
I think for us, it didn't affect because it's like we maybe have few customers in Boston we used to meet in person, but now since everything you can meet online, then just people are doing it online. I think it's more efficient, to be honest.
Cool, that's awesome. Corbin, did you have to, deal with direct with the partners and clients, or on that topic?
Not so much. I think the thing that really impacted us was like service providers and stuff like that, especially for like admin and stuff like that. They work on a 9-to-5 schedule. They generally work in offices. So the whole experience has been pretty hard for them. And I guess for us, it's just trying to be patient that things on their side aren't working as smoothly as they normally would.
Cool. Awesome. So one other questions relate to more to engineers and stuff. How did you guys dealing with a lot of people was like kind of literally scared to lose the job and stuff like that. But we as a tech company, I think after the mid of the pandemic, we felt stronger because the market was really hot and warm up. Well, did you guys had any situation where it was a little bit stressing in the beginning of this pandemic that you guys had to address or communicate with the team that everybody's safe and stuff? Or what was the experience that you guys had in the beginning of this?
I can't really speak to a specific experience, but just in general, the pandemic has been very stressful. One of the early questions you asked is like how something's kind of changed, and it was weird for us because nobody had anywhere to go after work. Normally, like you gotta drive your kid to soccer, or like you're going out to dinner with somebody, and all of a sudden there's no reason for you to not be near that computer. Right. Like there's always going to be something else to do. But one thing so we were all kind of going through this collective like stress and anxiety, and we do a weekly all hands, and it sounds like everyone on this call is doing all hands anyways. But for us, it looks like it's every Monday, and the CEO runs the meeting. He talks about the bird's eye view of things, and then each department will briefly explain what they're working on, and then everyone has a chance to say their top priority for the week. And that's just really nice because everyone gets to talk to each other, and any critical issues that everyone needs to know about are definitely going to surface in this call. So it's really nice, and I appreciate the transparency.
Cool. Awesome. That's definitely something. So how about you guys? Would you guys be back to work? Corbin, beside Corbin and Wafa, you guys been working remotely since the beginning, but did you guys see anything that you guys potentially would change after this pandemic and everybody can come together and work together? Did you guys see anything that you guys are thinking that is going to come back, and what do you guys see as things that won't be the same, or things that's going to be the same after this?
I don't know. I think I believe that work is going to change forever right now, because now you're working from home. I don't have to commute every day for 2 hours. I have more time for myself. I have more time to do stuff I want to do. So I don't know. I think I do believe like we gave our office back. I do miss going to the office just to do the socialize part to it. But other than that, I think it's working from home. It's sometimes it goes upside down, but overall, like, especially if you don't have kids, I don't have kids. So it's just like, okay, like I just have to take care of myself. Right. But that's just in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if we take away anything right now, but we need to really, our team needs to really improve sort of our socializing. I don't think anything we do right now is good enough at all in terms of breaking down the tension, just getting to know each other really well on a regular basis, servicing issues or conflicts or resentments or tensions that are sort of simmering under the surface that just never get a chance to get addressed because every call is about some other topic, not related to like our interpersonal relationships. So just continually improving on how we do that, remote socializing and remote sort of bond building.
I have a question kind of on that. We haven't done any team happy hours, or maybe we did one and I missed it. I don't like the idea of like forced organized fun, but at the same time, like when I go to those things, I'm like, oh, that was really nice. Have you done any of those, Corbin, or Wafa too, or anybody?
We've done a couple with the understanding that we know they're sort of weird and awkward, and we kind of just like, we're thinking, okay, we know it's weird and awkward, let's just kind of do it and see how it goes. It didn't go super well, and there's an argument to be had that you kind of just need to like lean into the awkwardness until it's no longer awkward, and you find sort of new ways of communicating and hanging out over Zoom. I don't necessarily like that. I think there's something we can do that's better. I'm just not sure what it is. But yeah, I agree with you, Stacey. Like sort of the let's all just get on Zoom at 6:30 and crack open a beer together is kind of, it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. For us, we don't do like happy hours like for drinks, but what we do like game time. So we have this all online games that's really super fun to do. Especially there's one for like drawing, and you just get on a call and everybody has to draw something and people need to guess and type it down. I think that's like a fun thing. It creates this like connection with other people, and it's just like it's actually really good. I really encourage you to try it.
Yeah, that's definitely. We try. We actually do every other week. We are trying to do something related. So just sections of 15 minutes. Say, hey, let's jump in talking about games. Or some great news that come up. Let's talking about it. And stuff like that. And also in Silo, we put a group of people that really interested on gaming and kind of say, hey, set up your kind of just talk, not talking about work, talking about something else, that's not related to work, and sometimes it's hard because people turn back that to work, that topic to work. But we usually try to kind of, do something and talk. And actually, me and my co-founder, we kind of just sometimes just say, hey, let's work together. And we just open up Zoom, and there is no, you don't need to say anything. Sometimes you just the Zoom is turned on there and you can see the person, but maybe you're talking to something, and you just come up with new subject, or you're working, on some stuff that just come up. You kind of just talk, but we just turn on Zoom and stay there and kind of connect it for a bit. I think sometimes that we've done that in the past, and sometimes works, sometimes does not work, and nobody say anything.
Yeah,
and you have
we do
to
that.
just,
I second that. Yeah, we do that sometimes.
Yeah. I think there's all these new creative things that, we kind of just have to do it. And I think we're getting close to the end of this. So I do want to have one really, great, good questions about, so how are you guys doing to, manage yourself, to self-manage your time? How is it? Is it being hard for you guys, or kind of just because there's so many work, you guys kind of just jump in and start working? Or what are you guys being, what is the most effective way for you guys to manage yourself, your time,
I think in the beginning it was super hard, especially when we started staying at home. Like, I have so much time, what I'm gonna do in my time? Like okay, you get on Zoom call with all your family, friends, for the first week, second week, and then what I did, just have really structured like schedule. So like I know myself, like if I need to wake up at this time, I wake at this time. I'm gonna work from this hour to this hour. Then I need to work out. I need to read my book. I need to do something. So everything like really like scheduled. And that's where I found like was super helpful for me. Like I know that I have to be in bed by 10:30. If I'm not in bed, my phone will turn off. Everything will turn off. So I know that it's not like, oh, I have an extra hour, let me stay more online and see what's happening. So I think the most important things, like see what works for you, what brings you energy and what's charge you, and keep that in mind, and keep like just be mindful about it. So all this stuff that helps me like to stay sane and be able to focus on my work. I keep doing those every day. Like that's the base for my daily schedule. And then anything else I try to schedule it over the weekend.
Yeah, for me, it's somewhat similar. I have learned that I need to maintain very clear boundaries. So prior to the pandemic, I was kind of just relying on my coworkers. Like I know my coworkers have stuff to do after work. So like, I'm just not going to work because I know they're not working. But it's like, you need to take that mental break. And understandably, if you're in engineering, you're probably on call. So yeah, you do kind of need to be near your phone. But I personally discourage messaging people at really strange hours, unless you preface it with like, you don't need to answer this right now. I think it's really important that we take time to step away, to just clear our heads, because we perform better that way too.
Yeah, I like what you said, Daniel, because it is your time, like it's our time. And I think part of remote work is that you need to be more responsible with your own time. Like you can't just like, there's no office to walk into and then stuff starts happening and then you can leave the office and stuff stops happening. Like you are part of intentionally saying like, I have this thing to do now and this next thing to do now. But actually, Stacey, I disagree with you on like the messaging thing. I think people should message whenever they want, but it should be understood, and we try to make this understood within thesis, that you are under no obligation to respond to anything outside of work hours. Like if I have a thought and I want to like make sure someone knows about it, I feel like I want to message them, that's fine. But I don't want the other person to feel obligated to respond. And we try to show this some leadership on down. It's just like if I'm off work hours, if I'm on vacation, I'm off. Right? I'm really, really off. Like we'll have like the CTO just uninstall team chat and sign out of his email inbox during his vacation because he's off, and then we need to respect that. So I can send him an email or send him a message, but I shouldn't expect him to respond when people are off. And so it is your time, and you need to be more cognizant of how you're engaging with the rest of your team.
Yeah, yes, there is definitely this difference between synchrony communication and asynchronous communication. I think the way we've done there is that, between like, let's say 9 a.m., 8 a.m. or to 6 p.m., all the communication should be kind of, responsive, or like if you are doing something that you are really focused on, just say, hey, I'll give you an answer, in 1 hour or something like that. We are expecting that the person message back, as soon as possible. But then after the work hours, we say, we want to make sure that we don't lose the thought, we don't lose the questions. We kind of send that questions, but again, as Kerben said, with no expectation about reply right away. But we do want to make sure that we don't forget, or that we don't ask those. And sometimes it's important information, or sometimes it's a very important question. You need some way to send that questions to, take the actions, even though it's like 11 p.m. or, someone like me work, at that time. So you can kind of just send a message, but with the expectation that the message, that reply won't, have, right away. I think that's one way that we've seen and we've done in the past. Another things relate to the self-manage and time manage there. I think as Wafa said, so you kind of have to set your own schedule. It doesn't mean that you are online all the time. You kind of say, okay, so I'm going to be working 9 to 12 and I'm going to take a break and kind of, just do my lunch, cook. Sometimes most of us is, at home. So you kind of have a little cookie there and stuff and then you kind of come back like at 1 p.m. and kind of just start by, and finish up on the 6 p.m. For me, works when I do a schedule like this, and so it is just not because of the company, but because of myself, and I even walk, sometimes I just literally take a break of 15 minutes and say, hey guys, I'm going to take a break and just walk. I walk around the block. And when I come back, I'm released. I'm ready to, cranky code or, do some, come up with some great ideas. So a lot of those stuff I actually do that. Any other insight that you guys want to give on that specific?
I'm going to push back again. The only thing, if you're messaging people off hours, you do run the risk of them reading the message and forgetting about it. So I would say email is the way to go for that, and not a chat message.
That's a really good point. You actually meant, like, for example, Slack, if you open up that, you literally don't have any notification on that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I would just, double check again in the morning and say,
yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
But I think that's like really depends. Like I think that's for people, what's their preference, right? So like if I know my co-founder, he like won't reply to emails unless I ask him, hey, can you reply to this email that I sent and I see you there? Like, okay, did I get that? I'm not sure. So if the main, like, it depends on the person, what their communication skills, and you as a company, how do you like to communicate? Like for us, everything like between the team and stuff, we do via Slack. Anything external, we do it via email. Yeah. And then we have like the tracking system, like Notions and like task management, so people know what they are working on.
Yeah, it's a big deal for you, right, Alpha? Because you have like different time zones that you work with, and for you can be 9 a.m., but for someone it's like literally, 11 p.m. So, tell us a little bit about that, how to manage those time zone issues.
Yeah, it's magic. So basically, sometimes when we have like a task and we put it online for our workers to do, like by the time I go to bed, that's when people start like working a lot. And then like since you since you have, what's really good, because you have people like around the globe working remotely. So by the time I wake up, the task is done. And by the time I get up, my team member who's in Middle East, so it's like 7-8 hours ahead of us, he will already like be communicating with them. So I think especially like if you have a core team, you need to set the expectation and have the 4 hours or 3 hours overlap. That's when you need to have a phone calls, or you have meetings, so you know that you can book time with them for these hours, versus if you don't need to meet with them every day. And again, like another tip is like recording those Loom videos. They are like magic, because it's just really, you set what you need from the person, how they can do it, so you record it and people can do it, and if they have any question, they can Slack you with that question. So just the overlap time and setting the expectation, like when people needs to be online, and like if some people take Friday and Saturday off, versus in the US we take Saturday and Sunday. So setting those expectations and setting when people are going to be online, I think that makes a huge difference.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, definitely time zone. It's one thing that needs to be, it's a challenge, but also it's a good thing, because imagine like you wake up in the morning and the stuff that you asked, yesterday for you was like literally there, it's done. It's definitely
awesome.
I mean, it's definitely a good thing, but it's a really, really great thing.
But that's when you need to be very specific. So like the outcomes need to be very identified and very specific. Okay, what success look like for you to finish this task? So I think that's keeping that in mind and making sure that you're communicating very clearly.
Yeah, I see that, because you don't have a chance to kind of reply or do anything, because you're probably going to be on the different time zone and stuff. Yeah. Anything that you guys do to make yourself, well, and your self-esteem and your well-being, during this time of working remote? Is there any tip that you guys personally do to make your mind refresh or anything? I personally like to walk. So sometimes I just walk and kind of just so I refresh my mind.
Get sleep. Get all the sleep you need. Yeah.
It's tempting to sleep. You're close to your bed. Like your bed is like literally close up to there. your sofa, it's looking at you.
Yeah, especially with this weather, you just want to like take more naps. So for me, I think I just have, so I make sure that I'm doing my meditations every day before bed. And when I wake up, I make sure that I'm working out almost every day, or go for runs, go for walks, do yoga. So it's anything that helps me, and like make sure that I'm eating healthy food. So anything that helps me, I make sure that I'm doing that every day and checking it from my schedule.
Anything for you, Stacey?
I just go outside. I know this is an engineering track. You've probably got some people that don't go outside. My dog keeps me honest, so that's the only advice I have.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, we do have a couple of minutes left, so I just wanna thank you guys for your time, and thanks Wafa and Stacey and Kerben for all these amazing insights, and for all the attendees. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I hope this help you guys in any ways. It's and then we are working remotely. Like, I think it's a very historical moment, a moment in history that we're gonna be looking in the past and say, oh my God, yeah, I think it's always collaboration and try to talk to each other. Communication is one of the biggest things that we've been seeing that's very, very important. And I think, again, it's something that I appreciate all the inputs that you guys made it here. Do you guys have anything to say, as a last word?
I'm reading the chat right now. I think the only thing I'll say is, like, we're all growing through this together. And Dan, you also mentioned this, so just hang in there. At some point, 2020 will end. But
3 months away.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.